Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us. So, did you know that humans are the longest-lived species in the entire primate family? It's true. It's this incredible biological achievement. But how exactly did we pull that off? Today, we're going to explore human survival through a really fascinating dual lens. First, we'll unpack our physical evolution, the external stuff that shaped how long our bodies can actually keep going. And then we are going to pivot to something completely wild, our psychological survival. We'll look at this ancient hidden mechanism in our brains that kept us from facing what early humans feared most of all, social death.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap. We're starting with the evolution of lifespan, the agricultural dip, and the modern longevity boom. Then we'll pivot to ostracism and social death, the biology of social pain, and wrap things up with the future of survival.
First up, Section 1, the evolution of lifespan, our physical history.
To really appreciate human survival, we kind of have to compare ourselves to our closest relatives. Think about the Hominidae family for a second. The maximum lifespan for an orangutan, that's about 58.7 years. Gorillas sit right around 54 years, and chimpanzees are at 53.4 years. But modern humans, we've pushed that boundary well past 85 years. It's a huge gap. So why do we outlive other primates so dramatically? Well, the research points to a few key things: our incredibly slow growth rate, a much longer fertility period, our larger brain size, and our unique, almost stubborn ability to adapt to changing conditions. But here is the crazy part. Our journey to that 85-plus year lifespan was definitely not a straight line going up. Back in the Paleolithic era, when humans were just nomadic hunter-gatherers, facing down literal wild predators every single day, species like Homo erectus actually had a surprisingly decent lifespan. We're talking an estimated 60 to 63 years. But look what happens next. In the Mesolithic and Neolithic eras, life expectancy just plummets. It drastically drops off. And it isn't until way later, around the Hellenistic period, that we see the average age of death finally start to crawl back up into the 40s. That sudden drop is honestly one of the most counterintuitive moments in all of human history.
Which brings us to Section 2, the agricultural lifespan dip, settling down. When humanity decided, hey, let's stop hunting and just start farming, a really surprising thing happened. 20 to 33 years. That was the estimated life expectancy for a human during the Neolithic period. Just let that sink in. It is a staggering, dramatic drop from the eras that came right before it. You would totally think that having a stable home and a reliable farm would make humans live longer, safer lives, right? But actually, the exact opposite happened.
So, what went wrong?
Well, the transition to settled agricultural societies brought on these massive, completely unforeseen biological consequences. First off, domesticating animals meant we were suddenly in close, constant contact with livestock, and that led directly to cross-species disease transmission and sweeping epidemics. On top of that, staying in one place meant living in close proximity to human and animal waste, so hygiene absolutely plummeted. And then there was the food. Instead of the varied roots, meats, and high-fiber diet of hunter-gatherers, Neolithic humans started relying heavily on refined grains. Their diet suddenly became super rich in sugars and sodium, but drastically poorer in fiber, potassium, and magnesium. Basically, this set the stage for the so-called civilization diseases that we are actually still battling today. Moving on to Section 3, the modern longevity boom, medicine and technology. Fortunately, humanity eventually adapted, and this brilliantly illustrates the massive explosion in life expectancy we saw post-1960. Think about it. In the 1800s, global human lifespan was still lingering in the late 20s. But then, the discovery of vaccines, the invention of antibiotics like penicillin back in 1928, and a massive reduction in infant mortality, it all completely changed the game. Today, we are looking at global averages pushing into the late 70s and 80s. Medicine quite literally solved the physical threats that plagued our ancestors. But here is the multi-million-dollar question. All of these medical and agricultural breakthroughs, they happened super recently in the grand scheme of things. So what was the internal, hidden mechanism that kept our fragile ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years before we ever had vaccines, or farms, or even written language? How on earth did we survive our harshest eras? That takes us to Section 4, ostracism as social death, the psychological lens.
So, the crucial point here is understanding a concept called ostracism, basically the act of being excluded and ignored.
Evolutionary psychologists have found that ostracism fundamentally thwarts four basic human needs: our need to belong, our self-esteem, our sense of control, and our feeling of having a meaningful existence. But here's the thing, in our evolutionary past, getting ignored did far more than just hurt our feelings.
Just picture an early human in a harsh hunter-gatherer environment. We don't have thick fur, we certainly don't have sharp claws, and honestly, we aren't even that fast. Our one and only evolutionary advantage was our group. The group provided shared warmth, shared food, and shared defense against predators. So if you were ostracized, if you were kicked out of the tribe, it wasn't just a sad day, it was a literal death sentence. Being separated from the group was, quite literally, social death.
Section 5. The biology of social pain, an internal alarm.
Because group inclusion was so absolutely crucial, over millions of years, the human brain developed an incredibly efficient warning system. Research shows that a very specific region of the brain, called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, or the DACC for short, processes social pain using the exact same neural pathways that process physical pain. It's wild. If you break your leg, your DACC lights up to scream, "Danger, fix this." But if you get excluded by your peers, the DACC lights up in the exact same way. It acts as an evolutionary smoke alarm, desperately warning you that your inclusionary status, and therefore your actual survival, is in real jeopardy.
And what's truly fascinating is the unique nature of social pain when you compare it to physical pain. In psychological studies, when people were asked to recall a severe physical injury, like, say, a broken bone, they remembered that it hurt at the time, sure, but recalling the memory didn't cause them physical pain right there in the present moment. Physical pain fades. But when people were asked to recall a time they were socially betrayed or excluded, they actually re-experienced the pain vividly in the present. Our brains are hardwired to literally never forget the sting of exclusion, because back then, forgetting could mean death. Take this quote from a study participant recalling an incident from the 8th grade, where some friends circulated a hateful picture of them. They said, "It was the worst betrayal I have ever felt. I felt extremely hurt, like I was a loser. I felt like never having friends again." And the neurological data shows us that, to the brain, the anguish expressed in this quote is biologically indistinguishable from the pain of a broken fibula. Social pain is real, physiological pain. So what happens when this internal smoke alarm blares? Well, ostracized individuals immediately, and often completely unconsciously, deploy these evolved strategies to get back into a group. We start seeking explanations. We become highly compliant with social influence. We even engage in non-conscious mimicry, literally copying the body language of the people around us to signal that we are just like them, to prove we belong, and to secure our re-inclusion. Basically, our biology practically hijacks our behavior just to ensure we aren't left alone out in the wild. Finally, Section 6, the future of survival, merging body and mind.
As we look ahead at projections for life expectancy in developed countries, approaching the years 2050, 2060, and all the way up to 2100, we're looking at populations living well into their 90s, with many people easily hitting 100 years old. Modern medicine has practically conquered the physical threats of the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras. I mean, we are no longer hunted by predators, and we have antibiotics for the diseases that wiped out early agriculturalists.
But here is the great paradox of modern human survival. True longevity requires both physical health and strong social bonds. We might have engineered our bodies to live way longer, but our minds remain profoundly ancient. That exact same smoke alarm that screamed in the brains of early hunter-gatherers when they were isolated, it still goes off in our brains today when we feel chronically excluded. So here is the ultimate takeaway I want to leave you with today. We have successfully engineered our physical environment and our medicine to help our bodies live to 100. But are we prepared to survive the psychological isolation of the modern world? If our ancient brains process social disconnection as a literal threat to our survival, then our next great evolutionary hurdle isn't just about living longer. It's about ensuring we actually stay connected along the way. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible topic. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.